What are you saying about your community? How it's born? What is useful for? What can we do with it?
Okay, well, I guess the question really is, what's the difference between talking about cities and communities?
Yeah.
Well, we used to talk about, first of all, let me explain. We started our first conference on smart cities 20 years ago. We just last week held the anniversary conference of smart cities. So I have to say, this is old hat. It's pretty old discussion. And a lot of people talk about smart cities as something entirely new. It's not. You've been involved with it. You've been putting in broadband. You've been putting in new infrastructure for many years. Just the nomenclature has changed. People have started to use the word smart. Why? Well, because companies like Cisco and IBM and Siemens, they've been putting advertisements out. And people have begun to take advantage of that information that's out there and say, you know what, this mayor or this councillor likes this idea. Let's be more efficient. Let's be more productive. Let's put some of those routers in place and start measuring. And why are we measuring? Well, we're looking to increase our ability to spend less money to get more. You know, Mies van der Rohe said that, right? Less is more. And now cities are saying that. And asset managers and mayors and politicians are saying, we would like to get more for less, right? So as cities go, this is an old discussion. Smart cities is something that's been in discussion for 25 years. But what we need to do is start asking the question, are you getting enough smart? I think that's the way the thing was set up, smart in the city. Are you getting enough smart? I think that you need to, smart is not enough. I think you need to start talking about a much larger, holistic discussion. You need to start talking about people as part of this whole discussion. And obviously, when we start talking about communities, it's communities of people, communities of interest. It's not just about a geographic area. But once you start getting down into the discussion of cities, I'm an urban planner, urban designer, and as what Jennifer Keesmaat talked about earlier, good urban places and good planning is really what this is about. I think that we have to start going beyond the concept of smart and start to talk about higher levels of discussion. We started talking about wisdom cities or intelligent cities or communities. The Japanese, in fact, told me about 20 years ago that SMART is just an acronym or it's an idea that's not good enough. You want to actually go to the apex and start talking about intelligence. So where does it differ? Well, I'm not sure it's so much an issue of being different. It's maybe an issue of going from smart to intelligence. And getting to that point is a process. So smart cities or smart communities is about infrastructure and making the best use of the technologies, infrastructure that's available. So how do you do that? Well, you start to investigate it and measure it. And asset managers and people who are involved in predictive analysis take this big data that they've been able to generate as a result of all these metrics that are being measured by sensors and everything else, and they're being able to look at the predictive analysis to say, this is how our budget's going to work for this year, and maybe by spending less or more strategically, we can get more for less. So what we do is we start to look at communities, and I work with 134 cities around the world who have evolved as smart cities and have begun to become intelligent communities. And out of those, we've determined that a lot of them are able to really create smart capabilities. They're already on the verge of looking at machine-to-machine Internet of Things. All we need is to get that protocol working, and IEE is working on that protocol. And once that protocol comes into place, which they anticipate will only be a couple of years from now, all of a sudden 50 million things that are sitting there waiting to start to connect with each other are going to connect. And there's going to be a huge disruptive moment in time when we're going to have to think about how those technologies are impacting our communities. So that means we need to have some really smart people to be able to deal with that. And that's when you start to go from just smart technologies and smart infrastructure to smart people through a learning and knowledge economy. You have to have a knowledge-based society to be able to deal with all of this smart infrastructure that we're building. Knowing what to do with it and how to deal with it is really important. And that doesn't mean you just deal with universities or postgraduates. That means you start from kindergarten to grade 12, teaching kids about entrepreneurialism and how to use this technology in a good and positive way. Because there's a lot of other stuff underneath the underbelly of this technology that's not so good. We also then say if you've got really smart people and you've got smart technologies, now you can innovate, now you can create, now you can undertake to create disruptive technologies and systems that are really positive for society. Wealth creation will come from that. People will be able to have a different and new kind of job, as our previous speakers talked about. And now we get into some of the softer social things that are a little bit more difficult to measure, but very important as part of the process. In the United States, we talked about digital democracy for many years. Now it's really a discussion around digital inclusion and how we can get everybody to participate, those who are disenfranchised, single mothers at home, people who have lots to contribute but somehow haven't been able to participate. And some people are talking about that, of course, inclusionary aspect as being part of the new civil society. And we also talk about the fact that once you have a good system like that, you need to create a way in which it's embedded in the society through good public policies. And so this is where good governance comes in. You need to have these good public policies that are also funded and continuously funded so that it can go on beyond individuals and beyond a group of people, that it's embedded as a societal requirement. The internet is now a human right. That wasn't like that before. And many countries are embracing that. You're able to create these new jobs, new places. You create a sense of stability and confidence because of good governance that now does a couple of really interesting things. One, it helps to create and attract talent. Immigration is also a positive thing. In terms of the creation of that talent, you want to be able to have that knowledge society in place. But you also want to be able to retain it. So in terms of understanding that, we were talking last night about a study that was done by the Knight Foundation. This is a newspaper chain in the United States. It has over 30-odd cities that they investigated, and they wondered why the people who were talent, who would read their newspapers, why they were leaving those cities. So they studied it, and they said, coming out of it, there were a lot of recommendations, but there were three very key recommendations. One, affordable housing, having access to affordable housing. Two, having access to affordable and very good transportation. And three, things to do. These are human things that we all want in our cities. If we have good cities, these are places where our families will thrive, where people will want to come and stay. On the other hand, you also are able to attract investment through that confidence and stability of good governance. There are many other things that make up these intelligent communities. You have to look at how collaboration works, how you ensure and nurture leadership as part of a good society. To be able to have that confidence also attracts risk capital. There are a lot of venture capitalists that won't come into some cities for a certain reason. And when you do all of these things, then you have the ability to create and perform good urban design in your communities and good transportation systems and so forth that will help to create really good cities and keep and attract the investment and talent that's necessary for these intelligent communities to thrive.